26th. And the recording has started. So the first thing we're going to do, I already took a poll, but we'll do it in the official meeting, is we're going to do an attendance and quorum check. So I see Vice Chair Venkatraman is here, Commissioner Katz, Commissioner Maloof. I see Commissioner DeSnyder, Commissioner Ambiel, and Commissioner Oyang. We have all 7 members, and myself, all 7 members of the commission present this evening. And I thank the members of the public and staff and our extended team of vendors who've joined us. I think right now in this portion of the meeting, the commissioners may have their cameras on, and staff who is also presenting on different items, and our staff liaison as well. And we'll have members of the public have their cameras and audio off. I will announce when it's time for members of the public to speak. And when you speak, you can choose to put your cameras on when you speak, or you can have them off too, that's fine. So as we traditionally do at this meeting, let's just take a minute or two where we cite the Pledge of Allegiance to ourselves. So the next item is public comments for items not on the agenda. So is there any member of the public tonight who would like to address the commission on an item not on the agenda? If you would, you may raise your hand in the Zoom app, or if we have anyone on the phone, I don't know if I've seen anyone on the phone, you can also press *9 on your phone. And anyone with technical challenges, you're welcome to just verbally say that you'd like to speak. So anyone, we'll do a second call. I'm not seeing anyone that wants to speak on public comments for items not on the agenda. So let's move to what we call our consent section of the agenda. And we'll start with item number 1, which is our minutes that are in the packet. So we'll want to approve the minutes in the packet. I think before we call for a motion to approve the minutes, does anyone have any questions or anything that they think needs amending in the minutes? I am hearing no one, and I'm only seeing head shaking no. So I think now we can call for a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes as they stand.
Okay. And Commissioner Katz, that was the minutes for the August 31st meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Does anybody want to second that?
Sure, I can second it.
Commissioner DeSnyder, thank you. It's nice to have ample volunteers this evening. So we have a motion and a second. So if everybody would just like to raise their hands, keep them up so I see everybody at the same time. And I see 6 people with their hands up. Commissioner Ambiel, I assume, are you abstaining because you were absent? Is that okay?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have 6 yeses, and we have Commissioner Ambiel, who was abstained because she was absent last month. Let's move to item number 2. We're going to form a subcommittee this evening. This is an annual subcommittee that we form every year for our work plan. So the goal of this subcommittee is to update our work plan. We have a 10-year work plan. We've had that same work plan for a couple of years. I anticipate that this subcommittee would make minor updates to that, not significant changes. I think we have 4 priority goals, and I would anticipate that those would stay the same. And we're just gonna maybe add a couple things, maybe change a few things, make a few minor changes. And then I would see the committee would spend also time working on the monthly calendar for calendar year 2023 with our staff liaison. So planning out the topics we would have for each month. Marissa, does that sound good to you for the subcommittee?
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to have your support. So what I would propose for this subcommittee is that I would like to see at least one member on the subcommittee who's participated in this subcommittee in the past. And then anybody else can volunteer. It's a good opportunity for, commissioners. We don't have new commissioners anymore, but commissioners who are still looking for the opportunity to get involved in subcommittees. So is there anyone who's been on this subcommittee before that would like to volunteer? Thank you. So our vice chair was on this subcommittee before last year, and we appreciate you stepping up. That takes the pressure off myself and Commissioner Oyang. So is there anyone else who would like to volunteer for the subcommittee? Commissioner Katz, thank you very much. And thank you, Commissioner DeSnyder. I was going to ask you if you wanted to volunteer. So we now have a subcommittee of 3, and we'll stop there because we don't want anyone else on there. So we don't want to violate Brown Act. So that committee is formed. I think you members of the committee, you will be hearing from Marisa to schedule the meeting. And I think Marisa has the work plan that was completed last year with the commission, and then the monthly schedule, not just the one that was done last year, but the one that we did a couple of months ago. So then you guys can, we look forward to your update. Hopefully you'll have an update at our combined November, December meeting. What we'd like to do, as we've done the last couple of years, is get our commission to agree, have the subcommittee bring it back, get the entire commission to agree to the work plan, and then we would send it on to City Council before they have their annual prioritization conversation or their annual retreat, whatever they're going to call it. And that's often done in January. Sometimes it flows to February. But I think what we'd like to do is get an update from the committee in the November, December meeting. And so we can have our stuff done in time for the annual City Council meeting. And then we'll come back in April, typically in April, where we'll go have our annual meeting, joint meeting with the City Council, and we'll look at it again at that time too. So thanks for members who volunteered. So let's move on to the next section of our agenda, which is the update items. And I'm going to ask Marisa to give us an update on the ongoing projects that we have in the city of Los Altos, and probably some that are hopefully starting soon. So go ahead, Marisa.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Just going to share my screen. Okay, so this is kind of a broader update. It's intended to replace what kind of usually happens as the staff update as the end. And I thought this would be a good opportunity, especially since we didn't have our meeting last month, to kind of give a bigger picture update of all of the projects that the transportation team is working on. So I'll start from the beginning. These kind of go in rough order from, kind of most prominent at this moment to kind of future planned things. And so first update of the evening is that I'm happy to announce that the Complete Streets Master Plan was adopted at last night's City Council meeting. It was adopted with a 5-0 vote. And so that is really exciting news. I'll keep going through the list here. So street resurfacing, as you know, is one of our biggest projects, and that project has gone to bid. We selected a contractor. The kickoff process is underway. The contractor is in the process of developing the project schedule. So they'll be getting that back to us shortly, and we will move forward from there. And then the next 3 items, the Safe Routes to School signage and striping, Cuesta Drive, and the St. Joseph Sidewalk Gap Closure Project have all been incorporated into the street resurfacing project. So all of that will happen as one kind of citywide CIP, and that's for the purposes of kind of economies of scale. We'll mobilize the construction crew once, we'll do it as one big coordinated effort, and that will make things more efficient and hopefully a little bit better managed. So that is kind of the update for all of those projects combined. Next, we'll be really focusing on the citywide RFB flashing crosswalk hardware upgrade. So all of the flashing crosswalks in the city will be replaced with RFBs, which we talked about in a meeting several months ago. So the RFBs are the new citywide, sorry, not citywide, industry-wide best practice. So we'll be taking all the flashing beacons out of the pavement because those are really difficult to maintain. They've been removed in a lot of cities all over California and the US and being replaced with the RFBs. So the construction documents are in their final design stage now. We'll be reviewing those and we will put that out to bid in the next couple of months. Fremont Ped Bridge, as you have gotten a lot of updates on, is also ongoing. So right now we're awaiting the final submittal from the consultant and we'll be reviewing that as a part of the community engagement that we had during a CSC meeting a couple of months ago. We've been working with the consultant to address some of the kind of community concerns that were brought up. One of those was the lighting. One of those was kind of the exposed top of the beam that residents were concerned kids would be able to climb on. So we've been working with the consultant to incorporate that feedback and a few other things into the final plan set. The Hetch Hetchy Trail Crossings project is also underway. We've discussed that at a couple of meetings previously, as you know. So we are going through the permitting process with SFPUC and we're finalizing the drawings for that. We'll be submitting it to get the final encroachment permit that we need to do the construction, and then that will go to bid as well. We've had a few consultant contracts updates. The agreement with traffic patterns was approved by City Council earlier this year. So that approves traffic patterns for more work, ongoing support for the transportation team for the next 2 years. And also Alta's Safe Routes to School agreement was approved by council a couple of months ago for the next 2 years as well. And we finalized all of the documents and agreements that we needed for that. So they've been back on track and working with us again, as you will hear more about later in this meeting. We have a couple of updates regarding our team. We are still recruiting for the assistant or associate engineer position after Gaku leaving, as you all know. And also some exciting news is that Nafis was promoted to associate engineer because she is doing such an amazing job with us. So congratulations to Nafis. Congratulate her next time you chat with her. El Camino Real resurfacing and the Class 4 bikeway installation is still underway. We've had ongoing coordination with Caltrans and the construction is still planned for summer of 2023. And then some funding updates. We've been in the process of going through audits with TDA and VRF and Measure B. And so we've been completing all the paperwork and submitting invoices to get reimbursements for that. And that kind of spans the last 3 years as well. So that's been a big project. Foothill and Edith is something that has come to the radar of the city and county. And I'm sure all of you have heard about it as well. So we've had ongoing coordination with the county and also with the resident group who's kind of leading the resident meetings about that intersection and coming up with some new ideas. The citywide Safe Routes to School program, you'll get a more detailed update on that later in this meeting. And so we've had ongoing programs and messaging that have gone out. You'll hear more about that. Los Altos High, we performed the walk audit. We're in the process of finalizing the improvement plan and the walk audit report. We've been doing ongoing monitoring of the traffic in the area and also the new loading zone. And then we still have potential installation of the kind of improved loading zones. What we put out there now is sort of a temporary one. And then we showed you the plans a few months ago for what we wanted to do for a more permanent future solution. So that is still a potential installation. The housing element update is underway and we've been reviewing the transportation components of the housing element update. So we'll give more update on that in future months when we have more to update on there. The Cristo Rey Guardrail project is also underway. We have a plan set to review and then that will go out for bidding. First Street Streetscape is another big project. We've started the kickoff process. Right now it's on pause due to some staffing on the team and we are looking forward to picking that back up in the next couple of months. BMT policy is also in the kind of finalization stage And we are in the process of preparing that to take to City Council for hopefully adoption. This is the final page. So as far as grant writing and tracking, we submitted the ATP application, as you know, a few months ago. We're still awaiting the response to that. They said they would get back to us in October. So hopefully we'll hear soon. We submitted OBAG applications for 2 projects. One was Loyola Corners and one was San Antonio Road. So BTA requested some updates to some of those files so that they could complete their decision-making process. We updated some files for them and we'll hear back from them hopefully soon as well. Clean California is another grant opportunity that we are beginning the planning stages for the application for next year. And then we're also planning to get some consultant assistance for future grant tracking and grant writing support. In the last couple of weeks, we started project planning internally for 2023 projects. So we've begun the process of prioritizing all the projects and looking at budgeting and funding. And then, as you know, AB 43 is on the radar for the next couple of years. So that's planned for the future. Same for the bike parking ordinance that we would like to develop. And then our annual street resurfacing and striping project for next year. We'll begin planning for that soon. Safe routes to school infrastructure improvements. Phase 1 is being constructed and implemented coming this fall. And then phase 2 is meant to be kind of hardscape, curb ramps, ADA improvements, curb extensions, things like that. And so we've begun the planning phase for that for next year. And then the final 4 items are ongoing things. So administration and invoicing, and that's for all of our external funding sources. It's an ongoing annual event. We also have ongoing citizen relationship management and requests. So these are all the resident requests that we receive. We receive, several to multiple of these every week. So that can include stop sign requests. It can include traffic signal issues, questions about general transportation things or permitting. It can include, requests to look at, speeding, traffic calming, things like that. Lots of different things that come up every week. We also coordinate with other agencies on those types of topics, community requests. And so we'll coordinate with the county or with Caltrans or with neighboring cities on resident requests that kind of are multi-jurisdictional. And finally, the assistant and associate engineer, so Nafis and whoever will join us hopefully soon, are on ongoing counter duty. So that means that they respond to permit-related questions and development-related permitting questions and technical questions. And that's a duty that they split with some of the other associate and assistant engineers in different departments with the city. So just wanted to give you a bigger picture of everything that's going on behind the scenes and let you know of all the kind of exciting things that we'll have coming for you in the future. Are there any questions on any of this or comments?
Thank you very much, Marisa, for this presentation and this update. It's great that you're giving us this update on all these projects. So I think what I'd like to do first is open it up to any public comments, and then we'll come back to the commission to see if the comments and the questions that the commissioners have. So is there any member of the public that would like to speak on this item? You may raise your virtual hand, or you can actually just speak out now if you'd like to speak. I'm not hearing or seeing anyone, so let's come back to the commission. And I will look for commissioners who have their hands up, either their virtual hands or I'm scrolling through the videos. I can't see you all at the same time, so virtual hands are welcome. Commissioner Maloof.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Marisa. This is really a very helpful dashboard for us to understand what you have on your plate. Could you help me understand sort of all those projects that are in progress, given some of the resource limitations and departure? How can we gauge which ones are progressing to what you expect and which ones are perhaps being delayed? Or maybe in the future, maybe you can just sort of like color code them green, yellow, red, whatever you like. But can you give us a sense of like of all those projects? And not going through all of them. It's very tedious to do that, but just a quick sense of like of the top 5 projects that are perhaps being delayed or suffering from progress, and the ones that are perhaps progressing as scheduled.
Sure, yeah. So I scrolled back to the first page here. So there are 3 pages. And the first page is all projects that are, I would color code as green. So these are all moving forward, moving into construction, making progress. And then I'll move again to the second page. Let's see. So these are, I would have to kind of go through one by one. Team updates. This is, this is in progress. I would code. This is green. El Camino Real resurfacing. This is green. We take more of a support role in this one since it's Caltrans projects. This funding item, I put that as green. This is, stuff that we've recently completed or we're still just in the process of finalizing. But Hill and Edith is definitely green. That's, ongoing and active right now. Safe Routes to School program is green. Saltos High is green. The housing element update is green. Cristo Rey guardrail has been kind of yellow for the last few months, and now it's moving back into the green zone. First streetscape is kind of yellowish green. It was green for a minute, and now because of staffing and some turnover, it's on pause, but it'll be back to green soon. That's definitely a priority. The MT policy has been yellow and is now moving back to green. And then this is the final page, and these last 4 at the bottom, those are ongoing, so those are always kind of green in an ongoing way. Safe Routes to School infrastructure improvements, 2023 resurfacing, those are coming down the pipeline. Those are annual projects, so those will be kicked off soon as we kind of get some of the the first page projects off our plate and into construction. And then AB 43 and the bike parking ordinance are kind of more distant pipeline projects.
Thank you, Commissioner Maloof, for that great question. You're on mute if you wanted to ask any more questions or follow up, but that was an important question.
Thank you, Marissa. That was very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Katz.
Yeah, first of all, Marissa, thank you. This list is terrific, and I really appreciate seeing the entire list and understanding what's green, and surprisingly how few things are not. So I'd like to commend you and the staff for, with your limited resources, getting as much done as you have. I think it's terrific. I have 2 questions. One is more a comment. One is I'm really pleased to see the comment about getting a consultant to help with the grant writing and tracking. I think when we look a little more long-term, we know there's money out there for infrastructure, and I think that consultant's cost would be paid back in significantly if we can get some additional grants to do projects we need to do. So I think that's a really good thing to do, and to do it as quickly as your staff can do it. The other one is something that doesn't have to do with this list because it's something that's not on it, but I don't know another time to ask the question. Over the past 2 months, when we haven't had a meeting, I've had 4 or 5 constituents in the city stop me who know my role and ask me what's happening with the parklets downtown in terms of, are there any standards or who is looking at them and how that's affecting parking, and are any of them dangerous where people are sitting? And they want to know whether we own that or we don't own it or have anything to do with it. And I honestly can't answer the question. And I'm hoping that somebody can let me know, and I'm not trying to add to the list, by the way, I just don't know how to answer it. In the city, besides the city council, what organizations are actually managing the parklets?
And then just to make sure that when you say the parklets, do you mean the downtown kind of businesses, the restaurants that have the seating outside on the street?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, so that is not run by the transportation department. It is run by one of the other departments of the city. So I can put you in contact with the person who's in charge of that. If that would be helpful.
That would be great. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
And Steve, if this is Jim Sandoval, Public Works Director, if I may chime in, I'm engaged in the whole parklet permitting situation and planning for the future for a permanent program. So feel free to reach out to me and I can give you an update as well.
Great, Jim. So why don't I just do that, Marissa, and take you off the hook?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions or comments? Again, I can't see everybody's video at the same time, so feel free.
Cindy, I have one.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Marisa, for the list. It's great. Like everyone said, it's great to see all the work that's happening behind the scenes. Just one small question on, the ongoing citizen requests and coordination. Is there anywhere that we keep track of or make visible, anything that does get implemented or changed as a result of resident requests?
Not explicitly. So we keep an internal document where we track all of the, excuse me, requests that come in. We track it with the residents' contact info in case we need to get back a hold of them. But no, we don't really publish kind of what gets done as a result. There are a couple improvements in the citywide signage and striping plan that is about to be implemented in the fall that came from citizen requests. But we don't really track it and publish it, and that I like that idea.
Commissioner Maloof?
Just wondering, will we see this dashboard at every meeting, or how often do you think you can share with us the dashboard?
Yeah, I can definitely keep updating this and keep sharing it with you as things progress.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioners? Tom, Suzanne, Suresh? Nope, I'm seeing no. So I'll just make a couple of comments. I'll try to summarize. So congratulations
Stacy, I don't know
to
if Jim raised his hand.
Oh, I just wanted to chime in a little bit, but Stacy, please go ahead and comment.
No, Jim, you go ahead before me. That's fine.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, so I just wanted to really commend Marisa with, as you can see, everything going on, and she's missing half of her team, Gaku. And, our public works engineering staff, we have 6 engineers and 3 vacancies. So we have 3 people holding down the fort right now, and myself, I'm helping manage projects and so forth. So it's been crazy. And, just seeing this list in front of me, it's like, oh my God, we're accomplishing more than I realized, with, because I actually do have a CIP list of 72 projects. And, as an exec team, we, kind of honed it down, given our current state of resources, to the most crucial projects and the ones that rank the highest in the council priorities. And so, I just wanted to throw that in there. And even, there's a lot of little things that happen on a day-to-day basis, as I'm sure you all can understand in your own jobs, that just come up and create distractions. And then, things like going to a council meeting, preparing for this meeting. I mean, that's probably 30 to 40% of Marisa's time in any given month, depending on what the agendas are like. So we have an incredible workload. We're doing what we can to keep up and stay sane and have a decent work-life balance. Thankfully, we have some help with Jaime. He does some heavy lifting for us, and so thanks for your comments and your encouragement on this. I just want to put that forward.
Thank you, Jim. And thank you both for bringing this presentation tonight, because I think, as you said, Jim, you're like, whoa, like there is a lot going on. And I think the commission has recognized that, and seeing it like this is really helpful. And also getting an update regularly is helpful for us. So we're also feeling how we're moving forward together. And I think, as Commissioner Katz mentioned, many of us get questions from residents when we see them in town, and just having sort of, keeping on top of where things are at for us too on a regular basis is helpful. And this was done in a summarized, succinct way was great. And I really like Commissioner Malouf's idea of green, red, yellow, like how we're doing. And we don't, it's not real. Nobody has all green all the time. So we won't expect that. But I think this is helpful, and it kind of helps set the context of, what staff has time and capacity for on what we may be able to take on our agenda as well too. Commissioner Katz.
Yeah, I just wanted to build on what Commissioner Malouf said, which is that what's great is seeing what has changed, from yellow to green or the other way. And going forward, I think that it would be good to just take a quick look at the dashboard, but then to spend time just talking about what has changed that's either moving forward or for some reason slipped, and get just a quick understanding of those items.
Yeah, thank you for that. Commissioner Malouf.
Yeah, let me just sort of amplify, I think, some of the messages here from Jim and Marissa, and the resource issue is not just a Marissa and Jim problem. This is everybody's problem. All of us in the city have a responsibility to make sure that we move those projects, and therefore resource is an important aspect of that. And to the extent, obviously we're not involved in the hiring process, but to the extent that we understand what the bottlenecks are, to the extent that we understand what the shortage is going to be, that becomes important for us to be, as a commission, to be calibrated, and in return also to have the whole city calibrated. I think city council and us and everybody else in the city should understand where the bottlenecks are and what you're going through. And it's not only just a Marissa waking up on Monday morning and saying, oh my God, it's another Monday, versus, hey, let's make it a collective problem, and how can we help you by pacing properly when you're short on resources, and give you the chance to go fill in the gaps and to go find those resources. This is just it's not a city a unique problem. Everybody, any corporation, every city, every entity goes through those issues, and I want to make sure that we all work together to help you overcome those challenges. And by the way, thank you for a superb job yesterday. I know that a ton of work has gone into getting city council to get over the master plan, but this is just one example of where the city and the community does not see the massive amount of work that goes behind the scenes to get those projects approved and finalized.
Thank you, Commissioner Malouf, for both of those comments. Excellent on both fronts. And I think, as an advisory body to City Council, we are here to support the staff, as Commissioner Malouf mentioned. And I had a couple other things that I wanted to mention. The first one was to congratulate staff and Alta and everyone who worked on the Complete Streets Master Plan for its approval last night, including the unanimous approval 5-0 vote. And I also want to thank Commissioner Malouf, who filled in when the vice chair and myself had personal commitments last night, to just be on hand in case someone from the commission needed to be called upon. So thank you for that. The other things that I wanted to say is, in no particular order, Marissa, on a specific projects, is I heard that you're doing coordination with the county and a residential group on Foothill and Edith. I would just like to say that there are multiple foothill crossings that have pedestrian and bicycle safety issues. I'll just name a couple: Foothill and Arboretum, for example, Foothill and Springer, for example. So I would make sure, if we're looping in the county, that we consider all the crossings of Foothill that need attention. The other thing that I would say is the housing element was brought up in the transportation input. And and Jim, this may be more for you, I don't know. But when we had the annual joint meeting between city council and the commission, council was asked, I thought I heard the council asking for the complete streets to give some input into that plan. So maybe just go have a check on that. And if that's the case, then I think it's something we should take a look at. I think I'll just stop there and really appreciate this thorough view of everything that's happening. So with that, let's just move to our next item. It's item number 4. And we have a citywide police department traffic and pedestrian safety update. Marissa, did you want to kick this one off?
Yes, I would love
Okay,
to.
thank you.
You're welcome. So I'd like to introduce you all to Michael Taylor. Michael Taylor is on the police department at the city of Los Altos, and he is the newly filling in the role of traffic supervisor. So previously that role was filled by Liz, who would come and give our kind of streets and transportation updates from the police department. And so now that will be Michael. That's a rotating position. And so Liz's term ended and Michael is now our person. He's been previously on the patrol team with the Los Altos Police Department. He's been in Los Altos for 7.5 years. And before that, he spent 10 years on the San Jose Police Department. So thank you so much for joining us, Michael. And please join me in welcoming him. He's going to give an update on 3 different things. One is the kind of just general overall pedestrian and bicycle kind of safety situation in Los Altos. As we all know, there were a couple of pedestrian vehicle collisions in the last few months in Los Altos. So I know that an update on that was important to the commissioners. The second thing he'll be updating us on is the kind of overall back to school situation and traffic update. And the third is the crossing guard program, which I know has been something that we've discussed. So I'll turn it over to you, Mike. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Marisa. It's nice to meet everybody. And thanks for Marisa to kind of get me up to speed. I've been in this role for about a month now. And between Marisa and Liz Checky, they're kind of trying to get me up to speed on everything to talk about. So I'm happy to be here tonight and thank you. So I'll start off kind of with, I know there was it sounded like 2 collisions that kind of were in question that I believe my counterpart Liz Checky talked about last time. And I'll just kind of go into a little bit of detail about those and some findings that we had, a little bit of an update of what I believe was talked about last time. I did speak with Liz just a little while ago. So I do have the information that I think she provided last time. So I'll just start out with there was a collision in the downtown area in the area of State Street, where there was a woman in the crosswalk and she was struck by a vehicle. She did sustain, I would say, fairly major injuries, but she is recovering. And the findings from that collision were that was the fault of the driver. So it wasn't from anything regarding the roadway or anything like that. That was driver error. And then there was also kind of a similar one with another woman in a crosswalk near Los Altos Avenue on Edith. And there was a driver that was making, I believe, a left onto Los Altos Avenue in that intersection. And she struck the woman in the crosswalk. That woman was also legally walking through the crosswalk. And that one was also driver error. In that one also. So based on the police department findings, there was no other factors in those as far as signals, roadways, crosswalks, etc. I think those are the main 2 that I believe talked about last time, and I apologize, I wasn't here last time, but those are the ones that she kind of remember talking about. I don't have 100% of the details with those. Some of those are still under a little bit of investigation, but I can share that those were both driver error on both of those. And then moving on to kind of the back to school traffic items. It's a busy time for us at the police department. As we know, traffic kicks back up. Kind of, I'll share from my perspective as the traffic supervisor. It is just me and one other officer right now in the traffic division. We do have kind of a staffing shortage, as do a lot of people. So we're hoping to fix that soon. But from my perspective, kind of being new to a lot of this, I see it from the perspective of the complaints that I receive from the public. So having been on patrol for the last quite a few years, I'm familiar kind of with the traffic problems around the schools and kind of what we would call the issues that we normally have. I would say the last 6 weeks, that's the time I've been in the position, kind of since school has been back in session. It seems to me like there has been an improvement around the high school. I haven't really received many complaints kind of regarding the traffic issues that I know that are usually the ones that everyone has complaints about. The main issues that we have been having are speeding kind of in the afternoons, mainly from the high school students. That's what we've seen. And we go out there regularly. We were out there yesterday. We're stopping the cars that are speeding, and for the most part, it's mainly the students. That would be the biggest problem that we've seen out there. And then also, as far as the other problem in kind of the school zones that we've been having is on Portola. And the biggest issue with that has been gridlock with just the amount of cars. We don't see egregious violations out there. It's just been the volume of cars that floods into the area during the pickup times. And then vehicles blocking crosswalks and just causing gridlock in the streets. That's what we've seen from the police department side. And that's been the biggest thing that we've seen around the schools. Kind of on that same school note, update on the crossing guards. I know that staffing with the crossing guards has been a constant problem. In the short time that I've kind of been, I would call myself the liaison with them, is we have a contracted company that does our crossing guard program, but they're very good to communicate with, and I've seen improvement in staffing with them since the short time that I've been in this role. I spoke with them this morning, and their kind of focus is hiring crossing guards that are more local versus people that are kind of coming in from out of the area. So, and it sounds like they've kind of been successful with that, and they've got kind of some more local people. So they've got better people working in these positions. And then we're trying to come up with some new ideas to recruit more people, both from that company and then also with the help of us with the police department, through social media and some other kind of outlets and ideas to just attract more people to that position. It's a hard position to fill with just the hours and kind of the locations and that kind of thing, all of which you've probably all talked about and are all more familiar than I am, but I'm getting used to it. So Marissa, was there anything else that you wanted me to talk about?
No, I think that was it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So thank you, Officer Taylor, for this update and
You're welcome.
stepping into the role in the traffic department. We appreciate it. Let me open it up to public comment, and then after public comment, I'll come back to the commission where they can ask you questions and give comments as well. And I'm going to start with each member of the public who wants to speak on this item will get up to 3 minutes. And I will start with Nancy Seaman. And just as a reminder for public comments, you're welcome to just unmute your mic and speak, or if you choose to share your video, you can also do that. That's an optional thing. So Nancy, you may go ahead.
Thank you very much. I actually would like to share my screen. I have some slides to show.
Marisa, do we have the ability? I know Nancy shared her screen before, I think.
Hey, this is Nafis. Yeah, she should be able to share.
Somehow I'm getting allow Zoom to, okay, I'm sorry.
So I think Nancy, you pushed there might be a share screen button at the bottom. Do you see that?
Yes, I've got a new computer that's not behaving. Is there someone else who would like to talk while I'm figuring this out?
Is there any other members of the public who would like to make a comment on this item? Go ahead, Mike Emmerich. You have 3 minutes.
All right, this will be real quick. I just have a question for Michael Taylor. And how often do the police patrol happen at the schools, and what times do they occur? Are they generally in the afternoon or mornings? And I know Monday is usually the day when the community police department comes and tickets somebody who may be parked illegally or whatever.
Yeah, our goal kind of, I don't know, to answer that question with staffing, there really is only 2 of us designated to traffic enforcement right now. So as myself as the supervisor of the unit, of myself and one other person, our goal is to do that every day. But on Mondays, there's only 1 of us. Tuesdays through Thursdays, there will be 2 of us. And then Fridays, there's only 1 of us too. So we try to answer that question. We are out at a school or addressing traffic complaints every morning and afternoon. But just with the sheer number of complaints that come in and the number of schools we have, our resources are depleted pretty quickly. So it's tough. That I wish we had 15 of us and we could go address everything as it comes in, but we do try to take care of things as fast as they come in.
Any other members of the public with questions or comments? Mike, I still see your hand up. You had time left on your 3 minutes, so if you wanted to say something else, you're welcome to do that. And I think Nancy Seaman has dropped off. So I think what I will do is come back to commissioner questions and comments. And then if Nancy rejoins us, or she's coming on, we'll go back to her once she gets back on. So commissioners, do you have questions or comments? And Nancy, will come back to you. Commissioner Katz.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I really appreciate that. While you were speaking, I was trying to think of, as a commission, besides understanding what's happening, what role could we play in this whole problem to try to mitigate going forward some of the risks out there. And in my mind, I think a lot of the challenges right now have to do with coming out of the pandemic and having a lot more traffic than we've ever had, but also having especially young people who during the pandemic dealt with a lot less traffic and didn't use common sense behaviors when they entered a crosswalk with either a bike or as a pedestrian, to actually look both ways, be thinking that there might be cars that might not stop. And I myself have witnessed kids flying across the crosswalk on their bikes without looking, or running across them. And I'm thinking that maybe we can address that through our education programs that we have ongoing, just with some emphasis in talking about, being a defensive pedestrian or defensive cyclist. And also with the fact that our signage program is now just getting underway. I don't know how you can address that with signage, but it's just something to think about. And I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I agree with that too. That October was actually Walk and Bike to School month for the schools. So we did quite a few events with the schools. There are a lot of ongoing programs with regarding safety and kind of trying to help the kids with just to better understand all the exact stuff that you talked about, and just trying to make them safer people on the street, because unfortunately a lot of these accidents and collisions do end up being the fault of the juvenile. So the education aspect is very important in that we are trying to better that also. That's a good point.
And I can jump in here too. That is was the focus of some of our Safe Routes to School messaging that we worked on with Andre on over the last couple of months. And we have distributed flyers for Walk to School Day, and also in the past with our kind of general Safe Routes to School materials on how to be a good pedestrian and how to be a good cyclist. So I can show those to you in the next presentation.
Commissioner Ambio.
Thank you, Stacy. Appreciate it. Couple of questions for the officer. You mentioned gridlock at one of the schools. I'm sure gridlock is a problem at many of the schools on certain days. Can you comment on how you address that, or is that just something that is resolved in a space of time? And two, how does that gridlock then impact pedestrian and bike safety and a parent's willingness to let their child navigate that sort of scene? Sort of gridlock is something that begets more gridlock. So comments on that. And then with regards to the crossing guard program, you mentioned that, you know, recruiting is tough. It's tough everywhere for everything. Where are the specific gaps that you're currently experiencing? And are any of them persistent and repetitive gaps, either in time of day, location, or both? And those are my two comments and questions. Thank you.
I can also kind of take a first stab at answering some of that. I know we've talked about this before, but the crossing guard program, the role of the crossing guard is something that's really hard to fill, and it's hard to fill in Los Altos, and it's also hard to fill in every city in California due to all the reasons we discussed in the past, the swing shift and the kind of wage work role. So especially in an expensive place like Los Altos, it's hard to find people to fill those. And I also do want to remind everyone that the staffing for the crossing guard program is done by a company that we contract with. So I don't know that Mike is going to have all the specific details on that, but if you do have kind of comments or questions, we're happy to forward those to the company that contracts for us. So they'll probably have more information. And then as far as remind me what the question was about gridlock and walking and biking. And I don't know that Mike can really speak to how the parents feel about letting their kids walk or bike to school, given the traffic situation. But the traffic situation is something that we've heard about from the residents and from the police department. It's something that's on the transportation team's radar. And, you know, again, there's not much the police department can do about a traffic situation. I think, you know, gridlock is a relative term, kind of depending on the context of the city that you're talking about. And so I know there have been some backups at some different intersections and locations, and that's what we're looking at. One kind of thing that we would like to encourage the schools to do is, you know, especially where there's two schools next to each other, is have them stagger their start times so that there can be a little bit less load to the street network at one specific time and spread things out. Another is a lot of the encouragement that Andriana and I have been working on. So encouraging people to drop their kids off in a carpool if they can, encouraging walking and biking, encouraging people to arrive at school earlier than the last minute, because that's when, you know, usually at Los Altos High, for example, when we did the walk audit, we saw backups happening within kind of the 5 minutes before the bell. And then the traffic usually dissipates within a couple of minutes after the bell. So it's a small window, and we are doing what we can from a programmatic standpoint, because as we know, we can't just build more lanes given the context of the city that we have.
Yeah, I'll kind of just quickly add on to Marissa. She kind of covered everything that I was going to say. Thank you. But as far as what we do kind of on the police end is that we see these issues because we're out there on the street, and we try to address what we can to keep people safe. But what we do is important to just keep in open communication with the city and the engineering department. And I guess that's kind of part of the point of our participation in these meetings too, is just to come up with ideas of what we can do to help out. So that's what we're here for.
Commissioner Maloof.
Thank you, Chair. I have 3 questions to Officer Taylor. The first one is you talked about the pedestrian vehicle collision. I understand also there were some bike vehicle collisions, certainly a major one at the intersection of El Monte and Foothill. Is there any information that you can share with us?
El Monte and Foothill. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure which one you're referring to.
It was about maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago.
I don't remember that one, but I can look into it and definitely get that information to you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
The second question is, we're out of the pandemic now, and I'm trying to calibrate. Is the mess that we find ourselves in this traffic, is that due because of we're going back to pre-pandemic levels, or have other factors changed? Like, has the volume of vehicles gone up, or is it mostly drivers who are distracted? If you were to think of like the top 2 things that maybe or are different than the pre-pandemic levels, what would they be? Just some observations. I know it's not scientific, but sort of your observations being on the streets.
Well, I can give you my perspective of somebody who also commutes and sits in a lot of traffic on a daily basis. I think having worked through the pandemic and just not having the traffic on the street, I think we just, as from my perspective as working as the police officer, we just got used to having not a lot of traffic on the streets, which was nice. And we didn't have to adjust as we did. And now that we just have everybody back at work and all these cars back on the street, it just feels, I don't know, from my perspective as the officer that's working on the street, it feels the way that it did before. There's a lot of distracted driving with cell phone use. That's something that we focus on very heavily. But we had that before the pandemic. So I don't know, from my perspective, it doesn't feel different to me. It kind of just feels back to the way that it used to be, if that makes sense.
Okay, no, I understand that. And my last question to you is, you know, as you patrol the streets, and I'm sure you see cases that were like, just, you're going to be scratching your head. What is the number one thing that comes to your head that you'd like the city and this commission to do for you that would make your job just a smidgen easier? What would be the number one?
Well, that's a tough question.
Yeah, and if that's something that you maybe want to think about over the next couple of weeks and get back to us on, I can kind of report back to the commission at our next meeting what you've thought of, because I know it's hard to answer on the spot.
Yeah, I'll put some thought into that one, and then I'll have something good for you next time.
Thank you.
That would be great. Let's see, I'm going to open public comment back up. I know Nancy Seaman wants to speak, and if any members of the public want to speak who haven't spoken yet on this item, you're also welcome to raise your hand.
And Nancy, I have the slides that you sent me earlier, so if you're having a hard time sharing, I can share for you.
Okay, well, let me give it a try. Okay, share the screen, and there we go. Thank you very much for bearing with me. Sorry about that. I thank the group for working to improve the traffic around Los Altos High School. And so back on the northern side of campus, the new drop-off zone seems to be working. There are some issues that I've heard about the bikes. It interferes a little bit with the bikes going from the west towards the eastern entrance. So I think in the long-term brainstorming, we would recommend having bike entrance on the west side of campus through that extra entry, so that the bikes would come in from opposing sides and enter campus as soon as possible. And then mostly what I wanted to talk about today is the possible drop-off zones for the front side of campus, the Almond side. So on the Almond side, we still have some major issues around of the end of Valencia, right near the center of campus where everything seems to converge, and over on Alicia Way. I know there are other spots, but these are the spots I'm sort of focusing in on today and making recommendations for different drop-off zones on the front side of campus. So you'll see the drop-off option A, D, and E all use Los Altos High School right on the campus. This past year and last year, we haven't had any drop-offs permitted on campus during the main school hours, and it's led to a lot of issues over on, I see it over on Valencia Drive. It also involves some participation by the city in drop-off zones labeled B and C. So drop-off zone A is designed so that it would almost mimic what I see on Valencia, where cars come, drop off, do a U-turn and leave. The advantage to A, if the bike route enters campus on this edge of campus, the route A then would not cross the bike path. As it is now, cars going to the left on Valencia cross the cycle track, and it's quite dangerous right at that intersection.
Nancy,
Yes.
I'm going to stop you because
Okay.
actually I'm going to interrupt you. I'm not going to stop you. I
Okay.
think we're at the 3-minute mark.
Okay,
But when
fine.
I look at the agenda tonight, I see on the agenda page in item 4, Los Altos High School drop-off was listed, which is the item we're talking about now. And
Yes,
then we're about to head into item 5, which is the Safe Routes to School update, which is about the Los Altos High, I think, walk audit. So if you want to try to wrap up here in a minute or so, please do so, because I think you have a lot of information for the commission.
okay. I think this map is sort of self-explanatory. This one route A replaces Valencia. The one route E would replace Alicia. And I didn't see Galen Rosenberg here today, but he has said that this route D, which is the old loop, could be opened next year after the construction. If the city would permit a drop-off zone C, that would make it less of a backup. And the other 2 slides are just follow-up. Follow-up questions I had for Galen Rosenberg, and that's really what it was, follow-up questions for him. One thing in particular, this zone 3 would be great for parking. It's now being used as a staging zone for their construction, but it would be very helpful to have additional parking on campus there. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your help.
Thank you, Nancy, for your comments. I don't see any other members of the public with their hands up, and I don't see any other commissioners with their hands up for item number 4. I think what I'm just going to briefly say to Officer Taylor, besides thanks for coming to our meeting, is for me, the crossing guard situation is really important. And I appreciate to hear that you're looking at innovative ways and creative ways and try to find staffing and even find staffing locally. I wish I had the silver bullet for you. I don't. And maybe what I will ask is my fellow commissioners to put their thinking hats on to see if we have any brainstorms that we can come up with and share them with Marisa, who can pass them on or bring them back to a future commission meeting. But how do we solve this challenge of supporting getting recruitment for crossing guards to serve in our city. And I saw within the last couple of weeks, there was the campaign style yard signs out looking that the All City Management Services had looking for staffing. I thought those were a good idea. I think the one feedback I had is maybe have a chat with them about placement, where the city thinks those signs should go versus where they're sticking up. That might be one thing to think about. And I know in my neighborhood, I thought a different placement maybe would have been more visible. But that's all I can think of for today. And hopefully I'll think some more, and hopefully fellow commissioners can, and even members of the public who are on tonight, if you have any great ideas for how to help the city and the agency that they contract to recruit crossing guard vendors, that would be great. So Marisa, did you have anything else for this item, or should we officially move to item 5 now? Or did,
No,
go ahead, what's that?
Yeah, I think we're ready to move for item 5. That was all we had for this item. Thank you again,
Okay,
Mike. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. So let us then move on to item number 5, which is the Safe Routes to School update. Marisa, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Marisa. I'm the transportation manager for the city of Los Altos. I'm going to give a Safe Routes to School update. So this is going to encompass some things specific to Los Altos High, and then also some citywide updates. So this is our agenda. Like I said, Los Altos High, back to school, walk audit update. Then we're going to talk about the citywide kind of program updates, and that's going to include walk to school day / month, and then the bicycle and pedestrian safety curriculum, which you've heard about in the past. We'll give you an update on that. And then also a messaging toolkit that we've developed recently to hopefully address some of the questions that came up in the previous item. So we'll start out with the walk audit for Los Altos High. We've talked about Los Altos High, as you know, at several meetings in the past. Last school year, this school year, we've gotten a lot of input from the community. We've had ongoing discussions with the school and the administration and the residents and the neighbors and the commission. We've polled the students on their travel preferences and behaviors and how they feel about the cycle track. We've talked about a lot of that stuff in the past. And we recently conducted a walk audit. I do need to start out by apologizing. I know that we had said that we would invite the commissioners to the walk audit. We did have some issues as far as Brown Act and discussing kind of what was allowable with the legal team. And we apologize that in the end, we were not able to extend the invite to you. So we hope we can work that out in the future so that we can invite you to future walk audits. So moving forward, we did conduct the walk audit. And this is kind of what we're going to talk about tonight. So kind of the recent infrastructure changes and messaging that have gone on for Los Altos High, and then the definition of what a walk audit is. Give you a summary of the walk audit. We'll give you a summary of the kind of observations that we saw, and then we'll talk about the infrastructure recommendations that came about from the walk audit, and then we'll talk about next steps. So this is kind of a summary of the things we've talked about recently. Also, Andreon is here on the call to help me answer questions later, by the way. So as you know, in August of 2022, right at the beginning of the school year, right before the school year started, we installed a drop-off zone on Hardin Drive at the back of the school. And that was to try to kind of offer at least a temporary solution, and we could kind of monitor and see if it had an impact. And this is kind of also a result of the school being under construction right now. So space on the school campus is a little limited, as we've talked about. So the drop-off zone was installed, and we observed that during the walk audit. We also did kind of a robust messaging campaign to families and students about morning and afternoon commute behavior and travel choices. And we did that via a letter that was sent out to parents. We did that via maps and graphics that were distributed at back to school night, and also with the school's back to school packet. And Andreon and I also produced a video message to go to parents, and that was distributed at the beginning of the school year as well. So we tried to kind of really distribute information via various mediums to have a wider reach. We also had a presence at back to school night, and we did a table at the kind of info session at back to school night. We had all of our maps and messaging. We had some information promoting schoolroutes.org, which is the mobile app for back to school and kind of school travel. And that was staffed by a planner from Alta Planning and Design, Traffic Patterns, and myself. And then we decided that we would hold a walk audit now that the school is back in session after the pandemic. The walk audit would normally be held during the infrastructure recommendations that were done as part of the Complete Streets Master Plan. I've told you all this kind of process before. So because of the pandemic and school being out of session, instead of conducting a walk audit at each school, we had to just do an infrastructure assessment. So myself, when I was still at Alta, and Jaime and a few other people from the city went out to each school and looked at the infrastructure, since that was all there was to observe. Normally we would have done this walk audit, which would have looked at behavior as well. So since we couldn't do that during the pandemic, we did it earlier this month, I think it was, beginning of October. And a walk audit is a site assessment centered around a school campus. And so it will include an analysis of access to campus. And it typically looks at all the streets that are adjacent to the school. It will look at sidewalks and kind of sidewalk condition, and if there are any gaps. It'll look at, trails, if there are any, crosswalks, curb ramps, things like that, all the infrastructure within a quarter mile or a half a mile of the school campus. And then it will also look at behavior. So we'll go out and kind of create an understanding of the existing conditions, where there could be concerns regarding safety and circulation for people walking and biking, and also for people driving. And really also look at, human behavior, driver behavior, student behavior, bicycle and pedestrian behavior, to get a big picture of the kind of current conditions. And then as a result of the walk audit, programmatic and infrastructure recommendations will be developed based on the observations. It's very normal to observe kind of driver and student behavior issues at walk audit. So it's very common to see, people rushing in the morning. You see U-turns, you see people crossing outside of sidewalks. It's very common to see all that stuff. So when we saw some of those at Los Altos High, just know that that's normal. And the walk audit summary, I guess it was longer ago than I thought. I guess it was mid-September, Wednesday, September 14th. And we did observations during the morning and afternoon commutes. So that's sort of rare. It's pretty common to do an observation just during the morning or the afternoon, kind of depending on what the school cites is, the worst condition. And since Los Altos High has been a big topic for us, we decided to do both the morning and afternoon. We had 10 participants. So the list of participants is here. It was school administration. It was some local neighbors, myself and Nafis from my team from the city, a couple of students from Los Altos High Green team, and then one engineer and one planner from Alta. So during a walk audit, typically everybody meets beforehand, before the kind of morning or afternoon bell. We'll kind of circle up, you'll talk about what to look for, kind of orient the people who have never done one before. And then everybody spreads out during the peak commute time. And as you know, the peak commute time usually lasts only about 20 minutes or so. And then the observations will take place. So you spread out around campus and kind of at various key locations. And everybody's told to look for infrastructure and also behavior, like I mentioned. So these are the list of the areas that we observed. So we had a couple of people back here on Hardin Drive at the back of campus. We had a person each, I believe, on Valencia and Alicia. And then we had a couple of people at Almond. We wanted to observe the different entrances to school and also the cycle track and, all the kind of important intersections. And we were able to compare these observations to what we had observed last year when we had done not a walk audit, but just a more informal kind of site visit, drop off, pickup observation. So I'm going to kind of go through some of the key changes that we noticed as compared to last March. So this page is for Hardin Drive. The left column is what we observed March of 2022, and the right column is what we observed this year. So in March of 2022, we observed lots of cars double parked to drop off their students on Hardin. And this year, as a result of the loading zone, we observed no double parking on Hardin during the walk audit. And so that was a positive outcome of the drop-off zone. So we were happy to see that. Last year, we observed a lot of drivers kind of stopped or parked in the red curb area near what we're now calling the bicycle entrance. So that's the entrance that is on the north east side of campus over here. And this year during the walk audit, we did not observe anyone parked in the red curb area near the bicycle entrance. And again, we think that's due to the loading zone. So before that loading zone was just parked with, cars that had been parked, maybe, staff or neighbors or anyone else in the neighborhood. And so now that some of that area has been opened up for a loading zone, I think that's had a positive impact on kind of the illegal parking and stopping situation. And last year we saw students crossing Hardin kind of all over the place. So they would get dropped off, presumably by cars who were double parked near, all along Hardin, and they would be crossing in between cars who were queued. And this year we didn't see that so much. What we saw was the drop-off zone functioning, and we saw students still kind of crossing at an unmarked crosswalk location. So they were crossing at where the pedestrian entrance at the back of school kind of lets out. I'm going to go back to the map and show you. So as part of the recent construction, there's this really nice new walkway that goes between the fields here. It's wide, it's recently paved, it's really nice, and it lets out right here. So what we saw was students kind of crossing the street there where there's not a crosswalk right now. And so as a result of that, we're going to plan to install a crosswalk at that location just to really facilitate that as a marked location. And last year we saw queued vehicles waiting in the bike lane. And so that was also along Hardin. So again, since the whole loading zone was just parking and that was pretty parked out during drop off and pickup, parents would kind of pull up into the bike lane, which is adjacent to the parking lane, and wait for their student or drop their student off. And again, we didn't see that as much this time since we had the loading zone. They could pull into the loading zone and wait there instead. We did still see a little bit of that, and that was happening more on the north side of the street, where, kind of across from the loading zone. So that's something we're going to continue to monitor and take a look at. And then moving on from Hardin Drive, this is kind of the other areas of campus. Last year, we saw drop-off and pickups happening on Almond Avenue in the cycle track. So the cycle track is a no parking, no stopping, no driving for cars. And so to have drop-offs and pickups happening in the cycle track is really unsafe for cyclists. And so we were happy that this year we saw no drop-off or pickup happening on the cycle track, and really none happening on Almond, which has been part of the messaging we've been delivering to parents and students is, please don't do your drop-off and pickup on Almond. So we were happy to see that. Last year, as we talked about in previous commission meetings, we saw a lot of U-turns on Valencia and Alicia. And this year we saw noticeably less U-turns on those two side streets. So we were happy to see that. Last year, we saw a lot of drop-offs and pickups happening on the school parking lot, which again is against the school kind of policy and rules. That's another thing that's been included in our messaging, is to, please not do that, and to do your drop-offs in other places. And so that is in fact what we observed. So we're happy to see that too. Of course, we still did see some behavior that we would like to see improvement on, still some U-turns and still some crossing at unmarked crosswalks, and still a bit of queuing on some of the streets. But overall, the conditions seem to be better. I also received some feedback from parents who are really a fan of the new loading zone on Hardin. So that's been really great to hear. I've talked to Galen. He thinks the overall situation is improved. And I've also talked to Liz when she was still in her traffic position, and she thought the overall situation was slightly improved over last year as well. So the next step that occurs after the walk audit is to update the improvement plan. So like I said, last year, we developed an improvement plan as part of the CSMP process, and we were able to update that and kind of build on it, extrapolate on it a little bit based on the behaviors that we saw. So what I'm showing you now is an update, and I will ask Alta if you'd like for kind of a list of the things that were added so that you can kind of see that separately. I don't have that with me now, but I can ask for that for the future. But it's nice to see the improvement plan updated, and it's really kind of a more comprehensive view now of the whole situation and the whole picture. And this is page 2 of that. So we have some next steps, obviously, for Los Altos High, some of which you're already aware of. So like I mentioned earlier, we'll be installing the Safe Routes to School signage and striping plan, and that's going to include improvements along Almond Avenue and at the intersections with the side streets along Almond. So that's Valencia and Alicia and some of the other side streets. And you've seen the plans for that in a previous meeting when we were getting the review process done for that about 6 months ago. Another update is that we'll be collaborating with the city of Mountain View in an upcoming meeting next week, and that's a parent-teacher student association meeting. So we will be sharing kind of what we've done at Los Altos High and having an ongoing conversation with the city of Mountain View about that. And then we will continue to collect data. So as you know, we collected data from students last fall of 2022. And that was about their travel choices. You know, we're trying to get a sense of what percentage of students are walking versus biking versus carpooling versus driving alone and taking transit. So we'll continue to collect that data and observe the trends over time and keep tracking that. And then we will be still continuing the ongoing communication to parents and students regarding the morning and afternoon commute behavior and travel choices. That'll be touched on in the monthly messaging section later in this presentation. And that'll be an ongoing conversation. And then we will continue kind of collecting strategic data based on industry best practice. And also MTC is updating their guidelines on data collection. And so we'll be using that to inform our future data collection. So that concludes the Los Altos High portion of the presentation. I'm going to move on to the citywide Safe Routes to School program update, and then we can have questions and comments all at the end on everything. So this portion of the presentation is going to include the International Walk to School Day, and then the pedestrian and bicycle safety curriculum, which we've showed to you in the past, some updates there, and then the monthly theme messaging toolkit that has been developed recently. So first we'll talk about International Walk to School Day. It was in October. There is one day that was kind of promoted nationwide as the Walk to School Day, and we decided to give schools a little bit more flexibility and ask them to participate for a day anytime in October. That was because the initial nationwide day did fall on the week of a holiday, which is not usually the best time for a school event. And so we decided to just spread it out a little bit. We had 9 schools participating in Los Altos, and they projected that there would be about 2,200 students walking to school or rolling to school, so 2,200. And we will get their data that they're going to conduct counts on the day that they do the actual event, and they will share that data with us. So we'll have more actual data in the future. And there were some raffle prizes that were distributed. And touching on one of the commissioner's questions from earlier, as far as pedestrian safety, we distributed this flyer on pedestrian safety with safety tips and do's and don'ts and ways to get involved in the event and plan one's route to school. And there you can see at the bottom some links to information at the bottom. We also shared information with the school on the national event and the national campaign and national kind of information on how to create this event and how to conduct it. So we are looking forward to kind of hearing back from all the schools at the end of the month on how it went and get some of that data for you. And then moving on to the pedestrian and bicycle safety curriculum. This is something that we've brought to you in the past and received your input on. We've brought it to the kind of school administration group that we formulated, and we've gotten a lot of great input there. We were hoping to roll this out, already in the past. We were hoping to roll it out last year, but due to COVID, things were obviously pushed back since, teachers were kind of busy and a little bit at capacity, and students were not fully back in school. So we have been collaborating with the school district. We received feedback from various entities, including Greentown, LCI instructors, PE teachers, Complete Streets Commission. That was on the draft curriculum in the past. And then we were hoping to do the pilot in winter of 2022. We put it on hold due to the pandemic. And then in this school year, we've been continuing, picking back up with Los Altos with the school district and getting continued feedback on the revised draft. And we are planning to pilot in one school in the school district and then kind of take in some information on how things went and then expand it to any other interested schools. And we had a meeting on October 13th with the school district PE teachers. So there were a couple of teachers that we talked to who were really excited about this curriculum, and that was really great to see. They were really interested in piloting it. They had a lot of really great ideas. They had a lot of really great feedback. And this was a meeting between them and myself and Andreon. So we were thinking of rolling this out to grades 3 through 6. And we had originally thought about doing it in PE classes, and we've also talked about doing it in kind of an assembly format. And that would include a presentation on rules of the road, and then California law, real life situations. And it would also include some interactive stations. The teachers that we met with who were really excited about rolling this out had some really great ideas, like that students were really responsive to the police department, maybe sharing the rules with them and talking about California laws. And also we talked about some ideas of how to engage students of all ages. You know, grades 3 through 6 is a big span. And so how we can kind of tailor each grade to engage with that age group and get everyone really mentally involved. So next steps include kind of updating that curriculum again based on the feedback that we received from them. The teachers were really excited about developing some of the materials, and then we'll be piloting it at 2 of the schools where one of the PE teachers works. And then final item for this presentation is the monthly theme messaging toolkit. This is something that Andreon put together and did a really great job at. And what you see here is a list of kind of each month and what we plan to talk about, and kind of different topics for each month. And I'll give you some more background information on the next slide. So as you know, Andreon and I developed all of those messaging materials for Los Altos High at the beginning of the school year. And we thought that it would be a really good opportunity to take what we built for Los Altos High and then expand it to include messaging for the rest of the school year and for all the schools in Los Altos. So we've decided to put together a packet of messaging for the kind of whole school district, and they could use that information as kind of a template to share information with their students and with their parents. So we designed this messaging to be versatile, and it can be shared via multiple mediums. So as you know, what we put together for Los Altos High was back to school info, and it was reminding parents to, follow the rules of the road and to not do U-turns and to not park illegally. And it was reminding students to kind of carpool with their classmates or kind of plan their walking and biking route, or to walk and bike with other students or neighbors. And so then we decided that it would be a good opportunity to just keep that messaging going and kind of think of what themes would be appropriate for different months throughout the school year and have that be an ongoing thing. So this could be shared via kind of whatever format or medium the school chooses. Maybe they already have a messaging medium going that they want to continue with. So it could be newsletters, it could be email blasts or social media posts, text messaging. It could be shared at school assemblies, and it could also be recorded in video format. That was an idea that we got from one of the other schools. I think it's the Homestead School, and sent out via email as a video or put on the school website. So in the future, we'll kind of continue to refine these monthly themes as necessary. We have a list of kind of draft themes that we put together for now, and we'll keep kind of iterating that process if we need to. And we'll continue communicating with schools for feedback on how it's going. So back to the previous slide, I'll let you look at all the different themes for each month. And so it kind of has to do with current events during that month. So Halloween safety tips for October, daylight savings tips for November, winter kind of themes for December and January, and walk and wheel day in February and March, Earth Day in April, bike month in May, and then planning your route for next school year and summer messaging for June. So we're really excited about this. And so far the schools have been very responsive as well. So that concludes this presentation on the Safe Routes to School update and Los Altos High. And I know that in the past you've asked me for kind of more specifics on the feedback you're looking for. So I've put it together a slide of kind of feedback that we're looking for here. So I think some things that would be helpful are what I have on this slide. Overall, do you support Safe Routes to School efforts that are described in the presentation? Are there any things that you'd like to recommend that staff and the consultants continue to consider in the future? And for Los Altos High, do you think that we're moving in the right direction with regards to responding to the school traffic issues? And then if you have any questions, happy to answer those too.
Thank you for the presentation, both on the overall Safe Routes to School update and specifically on Los Altos High School and the walk audit observations you had. I liked your before and after and sort of the maps and the visuals. I think that really helped everyone, especially who couldn't attend that walk audit. So let's start with opening this item up for public comments. Any members of the public, if you have comments, you may raise your hand in the app or press *9 on your phone. Do we have any members of the public who'd like to comment on this? And if you're challenged with the app, we can have you also just speak out. I'm going to start first with Mike Emmerich. Mike, you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, I have 2 questions, and specifically they're for the school, and I realize that I don't know that anybody's there from the school. And then I have some questions from the city. So I'll do this school first. And I was looking at the main parking lot, and it appears that we only have approximately 60 spaces for the students, which is woefully too few. And that represents approximately 27% of, or 25% of the spaces available. And then with respect to the staff, we have 199 spaces, which represents 71 spaces, 71% of the spaces. And my questions are as follows. When the construction is completed, are there any plans to add more parking to the campus? And do we have any idea how many students drive to school? Not necessarily the ones who park at school, but the ones who drive to school and park in surrounding areas. And I haven't gotten a clear indication of what is going to happen with Almond and the drop-off, and if ever going to be reopened. And if not, what is the school's plan with respect to that? And my questions to the city are as follows. We have signage indicating no parking between school days between 8 and 2. Do we have any data on how many streets have elected to participate in this program? And can residents still apply for this program? Any plans to modify the program? And currently at Jarden, we have 24 spots for parking, and 15 were taken up by being used for drop-off. And prior to that time, Jarden used to have angular parking, which we had 80 spaces available for parking. So it's gone down from 80 to 24. So is there any plans to modify the drop-off? I understand the drop-off is a good thing, but on the other hand, we're losing a lot of parking spaces. And as a result of the signage for no parking in Jarden, a majority of the problem on parking is being pushed north to my street, Panchita, Casita Way, Distal, and on Jarden as well. They're doing not parking, but there is parking on Jarden as well. People are blocking mailboxes, and our street is not that wide as compared to other streets adjacent to us. And we have a lot of people doing, U-turns. There are no signs. There is no speed limit sign. And I realize it's 25 miles per hour, but I'm not sure an 18-year-old realizes that. So those are my questions for both the city and the school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, for your questions and comments. And I think I also saw you participated in the walk audit, so appreciate you doing that. Marissa, I know I haven't seen Vice Principal Rosenberg this evening, so I don't know if you have answers to Mike's questions that were directed towards the school, or if that's just questions we can pass on to the school and let them know they came up tonight. And then any other, I know there was some direct questions for the city too, so I'll let you respond to Mike before we go to the next public speaker.
Okay, thank you. So as far as I know, the school does not have any plans to construct any additional surface parking or parking lots. As far as the front drop off, what we've talked about in the past still kind of remains, true, which is that while the construction is going on, opening that drop off loop in the front is not something we're going to look at after the construction is finished. We are going to consider it, and it'll be an ongoing conversation between the school and the city. And as far as the parking program, I wasn't quite sure what you meant by that, but were you talking about the no parking during school hours signs? I was a little unclear on that question. And I think that is my response for now. Stacy, remind me if I missed anything important.
I think I think those were some of the key questions. I'm not remembering any other ones right now. And I'm sure that Mike can also reach out to you on email as well too, if he has any further follow-up questions. Joe Beninato, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you. I only need a moment. I appreciated the report on the high school, and I'm sorry I got here a little bit late, but I just wanted to thank all of you, the staff and the commissioners who worked so diligently on the Complete Streets Master Plan. It's an amazing document. It's difficult for the layperson to get through, but I know sometimes, staff and commissions really get beat up. And I just want you to know there's a group of residents who really appreciate what you guys did and what you do every day. And you probably don't hear it often enough. So thank you on behalf of, those of us who have been following this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, and thanks for coming to our meeting. Jill Woodford.
Hi, thank you. And sorry, I actually came late too because I was in the East Bay for work late. And I missed all of this, and I'm really bummed out because I was so looking forward to seeing everything that you guys are presenting. And I also want to say thank you for everything that you're doing to help make it safer for kids to walk and bike to school. I just had one question because I may have missed this, but at Egan, Portola is kind of a scary road with all of those cars. And I don't know if the bike education is going to be happening there as well at the middle schools, but a couple of kids in the neighborhood have asked me to speak up on their behalf because they're being yelled at by teachers not to actually bike in the street. I'm an avid bicyclist. I always bike in the street. I don't bike on the sidewalk, but they're being asked to walk all the way down to San Antonio before they mount on their bike. And then when they come in the morning to dismount and walk all the way down the sidewalk from San Antonio, which adds 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how many cars are pulling in the Bullis parking lot and everything. And so, I would just ask that we make it safer for kids to bike and easier for them to bike safely and not yell at them and make them cry before school starts because they were actually riding their bike to school. And I don't know what part the city can have in this new education program that would, make it something that's comfortable for whatever the school staff, wherever that's coming from. But, I'm hoping these conversations happen in some, additional changes or education could happen around that. So thank you.
Thank you. That's good to know.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, Marisa, I don't know what our current protocol is, but maybe worth following up after the meeting is I know that the city sometimes used to work with some of the schools and sort of have procedures on, how kids enter and exit the schools. And if I'm not mistaken, it was the police department who maybe did that years ago. I know when my son was at elementary school, these things were planned. So maybe just some follow-up. So yeah. Is there anyone else from the public who'd like to speak on this item? Joe, I still see your hand up, but I think you already had your turn and I'm sure you just forgot to put it down. I'm not seeing anyone else from the public and I'm not hearing anyone else. So let's bring it back to the commission. And again, commissioners, I don't have everyone in one panel right now in my video, so feel free to use your virtual hand as well as your regular hand. Commissioner Katz.
Yeah, so Marissa, I'm going to start by trying to answer your questions, which is, first of all, I think that staff is absolutely moving in the right direction, and I'll say a little more about that. I think the team that you've pulled together with the police department and with the administration at the high school, and not only the direction, but the steps that you have taken have been a role model that could work with the other major schools that are having significant problems. Maybe not to the same extent, because I know an enormous amount of effort has gone into this. And there is no question that I can't speak for the commission, but for myself, that the efforts that were described in the presentation, I think I would support totally without any caveats. So I would commend the entire team, you, the police department, the administration, for doing what you're doing. I do have two questions from the presentation. And by the way, the PDF that was provided as pre-reading, I thought was extremely well done and extremely helpful. And I know there's nobody from the school here in this meeting tonight, but it would be really great for me to know. I was blown away by the fact that there was a comment that 500 students are cycling to school, to the high school every day. And if that's accurate, that represents 20% of the population or something thereabout, which I think is great. I would love to know from the administration what their goal is, over the next school year. Do they want to get that to 25%? And if so, there was also a comment made that during the walk audit, it looked like the bike parking capacity was fully utilized. And if we want to increase that, then how are they going to do that with additional bike parking? It would be great to know that as well. And then the second question that I have has to do with the recommendations at the 7 locations that were identified in the audit. And in reading the bulleted list, there were approximately 4 to 6 recommendations per each location. And if if you just multiply that times 7, you've got 35 to 40 recommendations there. It would be great to know if the team is going to try to narrow that down to those recommendations that have the biggest payback if they get put in place, and how that process is going to work, and then move forward to identify the owners to actually solve those, whether it's the school or the city, and to get an update on that at some point. Those are my only questions.
Marissa, we can't hear you.
Thanks. Should I go ahead and answer now?
Yes, please.
Okay, so yeah, we've just received the list of kind of recommendations from Alta. So we're still in the process of reviewing those, and then absolutely we'll be kind of taking a look at them, prioritizing them, and making a plan for which ones to implement first and how to do it.
Great.
And then I think your comment about the bike parking being fully utilized and taking a look at if we need more bike parking, I think that's a great comment. So I'll take a look at that as well. And I don't know that the school necessarily has goals for increasing walking and biking, but I know that we on the city side developed some that we shared with you a couple of months ago as far as kind of a ongoing goal to increase the bike and pedestrian mode share. So we'll be taking a look at that too, and we'll be looking at the results of our next survey that we do in a few months and comparing it with the last round of data to see what happens there.
Great, thank you. And I'm going to back up a minute because I forgot to mention, I heard a member of the public, Jill Wardford, mention that she missed part of this presentation because she was otherwise engaged this evening. Our meetings are recorded, and I think the recordings are available if you have free time and want to go back and take a look at it. And Marisa, I think at one point, if a presentation wasn't you have a detailed thing in our packet in a PDF, but for the presentations, I don't know if those get posted afterwards or if a member of the public needs them, if they can request them, since this is a public meeting, that should be available as well. I'm going to go to Commissioner Maloof.
Thank you, Chair. Marissa, I'm a big fan. I loved reading your technical memorandum. That was an outstanding document and very informative. And I love the rigor and the detail level that was in the report. So, do I support that? Do I think you're going the right direction? Absolutely. I also see it on the ground that the degree of chaos around the high school is a bit better than last year. So I would say your first 10% accomplishment, you can say, yeah, we've got that. What happened? Well, I shouldn't say what happened. What we have now in front of us is to tackle the parking problem. So that's the next 10% to go after. And of course, I get a bunch of recommendations that you want to go implement. So by all means, go for it. But I want to make sure that we as a community, as staff, as a city, and as a high school, don't take our eyes off that ball, because the moment we just take our eyes off that ball, it's going to go back to square one. And so we have to maintain that pressure. Ultimately, I mean, the statistics that you have in there are great. I mean, you got 2,200 kids in the high school, 500 of whom use the bike. And it sounds like between biking and rolling, there's 30%. I can't figure out that math, but I'm going to trust you on that. But that really means you've got over 1,000 students who are somehow coming by vehicles. And we just simply, I don't know how in the world we're going to make more streets and more parking to accommodate 1,100 vehicles. And so there's only one way forward, and that is we have to, either by education or by ratcheting up the pain points, to get those kids off the vehicles. Fortunately, we live in a sunny state, so there's really no, unless you live far, there should be incentives and some pain points for them to make the trek either by foot or by bike. But ultimately, adding more parking, I understand Mike's issue about more parking on Jordan Drive. That'll be great, but adding an extra 50 or 60 parking spots is not going to fix the problem. We've got 1,100 vehicles, so there's an order of magnitude problem that we need to address, and that needs to be done by that 10%, incremental 10%, ultimately forcing these students to not come by car. But I will look forward to see the recommendations put in place. I also want to I forgot to commend also the officer earlier. I have seen more enforcement, and that matters. That really matters a lot. I don't know what the statistics are. I mean, how often these folks are getting ticketed, but all of that in tandem does make a difference. And so thank you for that work. This is a significant improvement from last year, but again, we've got more work ahead of us.
Commissioner Ambiel.
Yes, thank you very much. Sorry, I got my mic. Lots of great work. Lots more ahead of us. So I do appreciate the focus and attention at Los Altos High. It's the future, unfortunately, looks like it's going to get worse before it gets better, as more and more students are enrolled at Los Altos High. I hope that we start to look at things like coordinated transportation programs from VTA. What does the bus schedule look like? What are we doing there to work with VTA to get more students on buses? Are there free passes we can offer? Just looking at all the options available to us to get more students out of cars and into other modes of transit. So I think that is something we should also be looking at. Creative means, it's not ped and not bike, but transit. and start looking at those areas as well. But overall, I think this is a tough problem to solve for. The school is at capacity, but there's more students coming. We need to have an eye for the future and, always keep an eye on the neighborhood and how do we minimize the impact. We can't eliminate it because the school is where the school is. But how do we minimize the impact on the neighbors of the traffic problems that occur? So I think just additional creative thinking. I would also encourage us to look at the safety and security of bikes that are on campus. What have we done to ensure some sort of certainty that the end of the school day, my bike will be there? When my boys went to Los Altos High School, the bike parking areas were open. And both of my boys had 2 bikes either stripped or stolen during school hours. And as a parent, I don't want my son's riding to school if I'm going to be out $250, $350, $400 on a bike because the bike parking isn't secure during school hours and isn't secure during athletics practice hours, because both of my boys participated in after-school athletics and each boy had 1 bike stolen during that period, that window of time. So I would urge us to ask the school to look at that consideration as well, because a lot of students that participate in athletics will not ride because of that reason. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ambio. Commissioner Snyder.
Right. First, I'd like to say thank you to the rest of the presentations. All just like all the commissioners saying, it's impressive and very well done. The questions I had, a couple of them. In there, you talk about a messaging toolkit. I'm wondering, how does one access that? Like as a parent, do you get on distribution for that, or you just sign up for? You get an email notification, and how do you do that, or is it a text or an app? So the other question then too is that on one of the presentations, the walk or wheel to school, it talks about the safe or the schoolroutes.org, and it also talks about on there or download the app. And looking there, there's no app that I know of, or I didn't see an app. So I'm wondering, what app are you actually talking about? Because usually there's a link to the Apple Store or the Google Play Store to actually have a look at an app. So those 2 questions. And then a third one would be, we talked about all these issues that we're doing, getting a lot of people to ride the bikes, but on a rainy day or a bad weather day, per se, do we have contingency plans for when essentially nobody's going to be riding their bike or walking, and all the parents are going to be, or the kids driving their cars, whatever else? Is there any that we've thought about contingency plan? And maybe there isn't one. So just those 3 questions.
Yeah, I know bad weather creates a lot of traffic in a lot of places. Every time it rains anywhere, it's kind of a little bit different than it is under normal conditions. We have not looked at a contingency plan for bad weather for school commutes. As far as messaging, as far as the messaging toolkit, we're letting the schools kind of distribute the messaging in whatever kind of avenue they are normally using. And so that would be, if you're a parent, that would be kind of something you would have to manage through the school. As far as I know, the schools have, distribution lists of all the parents' contact info. I don't think it's something you have to opt into that I know of. I believe it's automatic, but I'd have to ask each school about that. And then your third question was, remind me again.
It was the safe or the school routes org. It talks about an
the app.
Download an app, and I didn't see anything.
So the app was launched. We gave you that update a few months ago, and the app is available on the App Store.
Is there a link to it anywhere? Because I didn't see anything on that. It says on that web page, but I didn't see anything about linking to the app. And you can, and then what the specific name of the app would be if you just search.
Yeah, the app is
Yeah.
called School Routes. And I actually haven't downloaded it yet, but I'll look into it and I'll let you know. I
Okay.
believe you just go to the App Store and search for School Routes. Or
I
maybe it's
think I
called
didn't, I think
schoolroutes.org.
I tried that and didn't find it.
Okay, great.
Okay.
I'll work on that. I'll try to find the link.
All right, thank you.
And the vice chair, do you have some comments as well? I think I'm just looking at the timing for our agendas. And I know we're going to finish not too late tonight, but we are starting to take long on some of this. So vice chair, go ahead. I can't hear you. Just a little louder. I'll make some comments, Suresh, and then I'll come back to you to see if you have your mic fixed. So I'll just be very brief. I think, Marisa, what I'm hearing is that the commission thinks that you're making progress. That's great. And you're headed in the right direction. And everybody had a little bit of feedback about thoughts of maybe some additional things to think about in that direction. And I'll just add mine to the list. I know one morning, I wasn't part of the observation, but I was over there by myself on Almond Avenue when I was standing on the sidewalk right near the staff parking lot entrance. And I almost got run over by a bicycle of a student coming in. And I think we need a plan for on the Almond, just on like on the Hardin side where we have a place where the bicycles enter and the pedestrians enter. I think we need something on Almond Avenue. This is where the pedestrians enter and how they flow. This is where the bicycles enter and how they flow. I know in your report, you talked about conflicts with vehicles and bikes and peds, but there's conflicts between peds and bicycles. And I think all of that needs to be thought about as well as how the vehicles will drop off if there's any additional options once construction is finished. Vice Chair, did you get your mic situation? No, okay. Well, sorry, I think you're welcome to email your questions and feedback to Marisa, so she has that. So without anything else, should we move on to the next item? And the next item I'm seeing is discussion items for which we have none tonight. We have these long update items. So let us move to commissioner reports and comments. Does anyone from the commission have reports or comments? I'm not seeing anyone. I will just say very briefly from the VTA end and the VTA BPAC, we're expecting to release the VTA is the Measure B Bike and Ped study grant that's done every 2 years, and jurisdictions can apply for funds to do a study. I know we had a couple things identified for studies in the Complete Streets Master Plan, so that's something for the city to consider if we want to apply or not. Commissioner Katz.
Is this a time to talk about items for next meeting's agenda, or is that?
I will call on that in a second.
Thank you.
Any final commissioner reports and comments? I am seeing none. Commissioner Katz, you are kicking off the potential future agenda items.
No, I was just going to say, given all of the, I guess, news and highlighting of the situation on Edith and Foothill Expressway, and the fact, Marisa, that you've already kind of started the ball rolling with community group discussions that you've pulled together. Is there a way to get an update of that at our next meeting, do you think?
So just to clarify, the community group organized itself. And they've reached out to us and we've been in contact with them. I don't know that any city staff was present for the outreach meeting that they had kind of amongst themselves. It was kind of a grassroots organized effort. We have been in contact with them. So we've also talked to the county, and ultimately that intersection is county jurisdiction. So on the city side, there's only so much we can do besides, communicate to the county what we would like to see and encourage them to, incorporate something into either a near-term or long-range plan, preferably both, right? Something that's kind of interim in the near term and something that's more robust in the long-term plan. So as far as getting an update at the next meeting, what's kind of happened there is the outreach meeting or community grassroots meeting that organized itself came up with a lot of different ideas. Some were more near term, some were very, like big picture, grandiose long-term plans. They do have an interest in coming to this meeting and talking to you all. My feedback to them was that what they were going to present needed to be approved by, county and transportation professionals to make sure that what they're proposing is in fact feasible. So I think it would take a period of review before they can come. I don't know if it could happen in the next month. I think that would be a little too quick, but it can definitely come to you soon.
Well, I think, Marissa, since we've already just gotten the update, and I really appreciate that, thank you very much. We can take that off the list for the next month for sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it was announced at VTA BPAC and Marisa, I'm not sure if you know, Ellen Talbo, who was the planner for county roads and airports for projects, has just left. Like, I think her last day was a week or two ago, which is really unfortunate. So that may impact any work we want to do with the county as well, and the speed at which they can do it. Commissioner Ambio.
Thank you. Over my hand. A future agenda item I would like to see is a detailed, maybe even a study session. I'll throw that out there as a possibility on the housing element update that the city will file in response to the requirement to comply with SB 8. We've seen lots of news from Mountain View, who had a very progressive and aggressive plan, only to come back with 12 pages of detailed like updates they're going to need to do. I think it's incumbent upon this commission to understand where the city sees the opportunity to meet the requirements of SB 8 and what the transportation impacts are of those suggested changes and developments, both from a vehicular point of view, as well as pedestrian, bicycle, and school commute. We see a lot of emphasis on the actual development, but not necessarily on the infrastructure required to support and sustain that additional influx of residents and vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ambio. Anyone else with Commissioner Maloof?
I actually would like to put the question to Marissa. What would you like to see future agenda items that you think are more important to the city as opposed to our wish list?
So that's something that I've been working on with Jim, and with Gabe, and with the rest of the team, and also with Jaime. So we've been having some internal discussions on that. We've been going through kind of our, projected projects for next year, prioritizing those. So I will come to the subcommittee meeting with kind of a already formulated and a prioritized list. I think that would be a good place to talk about it. I just can't really spit anything off the top of my head right now for you, but that's something I've been working on the back end.
Great. What keeps you awake at night? I don't know. What is the number one headache for you?
I think that
Other than us.
the Complete Streets Master Plan was a big one, making sure that got adopted. I don't know, you all may have kind of picked up on this, but the bigger picture things are what are important to me. So Complete Streets Master Plan is kind of big picture citywide. The VMT policy, big picture citywide, that makes a big impact in terms of the environment and the transportation network. So those are the things that I think are priorities. For Streetscape is a priority for me. That's a big picture one. The housing element update. So those are the ones that are most important to me, the bigger picture policy and design things.
Then I'm going to suggest to you and to the chair and to the subcommittee to stay focused on those pressing items. Let's really stay focused on the things that we can move across the finish line.
Yep, I think that's good feedback, Commissioner Maloof. And I think the Vice Chair and myself have recently given Marisa that feedback in the Chair Vice Chair meeting. And one of the things that we have suggested, and I'm glad you brought this up because now this can be out there before the subcommittee meets, is to identify a couple our key projects for next calendar year. So the entire commission knows that. So when items come forward to our meeting, we'll know, is this a key project and we're really going to delve in here? Or is this something that wasn't on that priority list, but we need to hear it and we need to move it along a little quicker? And so the commission has cues where to spend our time as well too. So I'm glad that we got to say that to the entire commission, and the entire subcommittee is going to work on that with Marisa.
Yeah, perhaps I may suggest one more thing for the chair and the subcommittee to consider, and that is for this commission, perhaps for the subcommittee, to draft an annual summary. You know, what have we accomplished? Sort of maybe a one or two pager that says, you know, we are at the end of almost the end of 22. What did we accomplish as a city, as a commission, as a staff? Again, nothing too complicated, but I know we've done a lot. But sort of think of it the way a company kind of comes up with a shareholder letter. And what is our community letter? What have we accomplished?
I like that idea.
I like that idea too. Anyone else? I'm not hearing or seeing anyone else. And I think, oh, I know the one more thing that I had for this item is, Marisa, how do we want to handle, I think November and December meeting, it's because of the Thanksgiving and Christmas, we usually combine them and they're at an odd date. Have you given thoughts to this?
I have. I've been meaning to send out a doodle poll. I haven't gotten to it yet. What I would prefer to do in future years is just go ahead and automatically schedule instead of, I think what we published in the schedule last time, unfortunately, was still the last Wednesday of November and the last Wednesday of December. Next year, I'd like to just publish the first Wednesday of December instead of those two. And so I don't know what everyone's schedule is looking like now, but I'll send out a doodle poll for probably the first week of December and try to get us something scheduled in that week. If everyone's available Wednesday, the 7th of December, that would be potentially a good time, but I know it's something we'll have to schedule probably in front of our calendars. So I can do that offline after the meeting.
Great, thank you. So we look forward to your doodle pool for this year. I'll say right now, Wednesday, December 7th is the VTA BPAC, where I'm the chair. So you guys can go ahead without me, but
okay, maybe we can try for Tuesday the 6th.
No. And so we'll have to find a different date on the doodle pool. And then I think that's a good idea for the future. If we just publish it in advance, then we don't have to have this logistics of when is the meeting going to be.
Okay.
And everybody will know in advance so they can plan, or if somebody's absent, we'll know. Okay, super. So thanks everyone for this meeting tonight. We are now at the adjournment. Actually, I should probably ask, do we have any public comments on the things that the commission has just been talking about? I'm not seeing any public comments, so let us go to adjournment. It is 7:39 p.m. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.